Every single thing within modern Western society and social structure exists to disempower truth and discourage freedom of thought and expression. And we can see this pretty clearly with the concept of cancel culture, where you have a designated or socially approved certain set of values or structures, religiously and politically. And anyone who speaks out about that, anyone who challenges the status quo, anyone who has a thought or an expression that is unique to them, that is challenging the narrative, challenging what's going on around us, you're at risk. You're at risk to be canceled. You're at risk to be rejected, and you're at risk to become a social pariah. Now, historically, we know that humanity runs on a sort of tribal mentality where ancient humans were unable to survive, unable to thrive, if not existing within a certain tribe, because you needed each other to have food, to have water, to have shelter, to have your basic needs met. So we kind of have this survival program within us, and we tend to continue to run on that program despite the fact that it's rather outdated. And while we do need community and we need relationships with other people, we don't need them in the same ways that we used to. And so, because we don't need them in the same ways that we used to, we can actually survive outside of the tribe. We can survive outside of the herd. We don't need to adopt the same values and the same moral standards as the rest of the world in order to stay alive. However, when we're living in a society where so many people are in survival mode, everyone feels like that's the case. And the second you say or do something that goes against what the majority has ruled or approved as the right thing to do, you are at risk of serious rejection, at risk of job loss in some cases, at risk of ruining your reputation, and at risk of completely losing the ability to express yourself at all. And that is what we see when people are shadow banned and having their accounts banned, having their accounts shut down, kicked off of Twitter, which has been the case of many in the past. So it's really important for us to understand that just because something is how society has chosen to operate does not mean that it's the best way for society to operate, and does not mean that it is the right way. If we take a bunch of people and we take them from birth and lock them all in a room together, and they've never seen the outside world, and we tell them over and over and over again these specific lies. We say, the sky is orange and water is actually really bad for you, opposed to the fact that it hydrates and nourishes us. And we feed them with all of these lies just because the majority consensus would be that what they've always been told is true does not make it true. Just because it's all that they've ever known does not make it true. So if one day one person begins to question that and say, you know what, actually, I've seen the outside world before. I escaped, or someone else comes in and kind of switches things up, they would all attack that person and they would act like that person was crazy, because we can, as humanity, in order to preserve ourselves, in order to survive, ignore any new information that we are faced with, even if that new information seems like it could be accurate. We're not even willing to accept the fact that it could be accurate if it means rejection from the group and rejection from the herd. So I think it's really important for us to maintain that truth is so much more powerful than lies. Truth is something that has the potential and the ability and the capacity to dismantle every lie that's ever been told, because when that truth begins to settle in and resonate in the body, eventually these structures and these programmings and the brainwashing will begin to crumble. And we will kind of be forced, in the best case scenario, to reevaluate things and take a look at where we are at as a society and at where we are heading. So I think that in order for us to preserve our sanity, we need to completely reevaluate our Western modern social structure, because it is designed to disempower truth. It literally exists to create a hive mind of programmed people that just walk around repeating whatever the next person said, or repeating whatever you are told to believe. And when we operate in that kind of mentality, we don't actually have the ability or the capacity to evolve, because evolution happens through new experiences. Evolution happens through truth and through an understanding of truth. And so there's really only so long that we can go kind of operating in this web of lies. And if you are caught up in that web of lies, it is very difficult to unravel because of that survival instinct and that conditioning. So if you are wondering, well, there's so much going on either sides. I'm told one thing and I believe it, and then I'm told something else, and that also seems like it might be true. What can I do to ensure that what I believe is true, and that what I am taking in, or what I am repeating, is truth when I'm surrounded by lies? And that would be a really great question, because quite honestly, I think that we should all have the humility to be able to look at ourselves and acknowledge that we aren't always right. We aren't always correct. And that sometimes we do receive new information that challenges what we previously believed. And hopefully we can be mature enough to enter into a relationship with that new information, where we begin to kind of let it work on us, and hold it up against reality, and hold it up against experience. So if you're wondering what you can do to begin to hold things up against reality and kind of test things, it really helps to first have a strong set of values. What matters to you? What's important to you, and why? What does it really look like to be an empathetic and compassionate human being? Because sometimes the things that we are told make us compassionate, the things that we are told make us empathetic, are not actually true. So we need to kind of look at the man behind the curtain. What are the agendas behind these things that are being pushed? And how does that line up with my own personal value system? How does it line up with what I think is true? How does it resonate in my spirit beyond whatever ideologically I have been told to believe? And sometimes we're not even told to believe something. Sometimes we just feel that, we think that, one example of this is to say, I just think that everyone should be happy. And we kind of take happiness and we think that happiness equals health. And we think that happiness equals safety. And that's not necessarily the case, because what might make one person happy could be something healthy for them. And what might make another person happy could be appeasing their lower centers. And it could be kind of coming from this place of pain and trauma where it's not actually healthy for them. It's not actually good for them. And in fact, we are supporting something that is very, very destructive. So it's important that we go a little bit deeper than that. The saying live and let live is really nice on the surface, but when we actually begin to apply it, it does not always hold up. So we really need to get clear on what our values are, and we need to get clear on kind of who we are as a person, because if we do not know ourselves outside of the herd, outside of the tribe, how are we supposed to do anything in life? We would just be acting like a robot and kind of going along with what everybody else does. And unfortunately, so many people do live their lives that way, and they see whatever the majority is doing, and that makes them feel safe. It again triggers that kind of ancient survival instinct where that was the only way. Following the herd was how you nourished yourself. It was how you had shelter. It was how you had protection. And we do not need to live that way anymore. Now, if I'm hungry, I can go to the grocery store and I can get myself food. But I will say that we are entering into a phase where In the future, it's not going to be that simple. And in the future, it will actually challenge our survival instincts, because maybe you will be denied access to food and water if you don't put a chip in your brain or something similar. And we saw this around 2019 and 2020 and beyond very clearly, where people were losing their jobs, and they did feel backed into a corner because they felt like if they didn't go along with what everybody else was doing, then their survival really was at stake. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is more important to us on a basic level? Is it truth? Is it that we're living with integrity? Is it that we are living in reality? Or is it that we just survive? And the way that they keep a society in this survival mindset is to traumatize us over and over and over again, so that we literally feel like we are so exhausted, we're so broken down, that that's all we really have left. We don't have hope for a future for ourselves. We do not have hope for a future for society. We see the world as a crumbling piece of crap that's never going to get better. And so when we kind of operate out of that mindset, of course, we're going to go along with whatever is going to make us feel the safest. But it is a faux sense of safety, because what are we really sacrificing? What are we really giving up? We're sacrificing something on a soul level. And so if we get very clear about our values, then we'll know, how important is that to me really? How important is it to me to live with integrity? What does integrity mean to me? How do I apply that in my day-to-day life? Because quite honestly, it is not enough for us to just be all talk. It is not. We have to apply it. We have to go out into the real world and actually live according to our values, even if we look crazy and stupid. Even if we are the only people doing it, even if people villainize us and treat us as monsters and like bad people, and that will happen. It does happen. You might be kicked off of a platform if you share what you actually believe in. You might be kicked out of a store if you're not wearing a mask. These are real life scenarios. So this is just something to think about. It's something that's been on my mind a lot lately, especially as we continuously see that our autonomy and our freedoms are being infringed upon. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this subject as well. And thanks for hanging out with me.